Is it just me? Do I look a bit different for today? I suppose no matter what though, is yet another one of those skin replacements. So with that being said, greetings ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations, while we're still playing through Shadow Generations for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, Nintendo Switch, and of course Nintendo Switch 2, thanks to backwards compatibility. So last time, we've essentially managed able to tackle for the first set of challenge acts in Journey forms of it not only in Space Colony Arc, but in addition to Rail Canyon, just to ensure for the fact that obviously though, unlike in Sonic Generations, that you can able to actually tackle any challenges as you want. But in Shadow Generations though, as I said this before, since in yesterday, we have to go through every single challenge act this time in order to actually get access to the boss keys. And as a result though, and speaking of which, we also did manage to take on the first boss in the game in Shadow Generations, and that's what appears to be none other than the Bio-Lizard. So it makes sense, concerning for the fact that back in Sonic Adventure 2, that obviously though Shadow did manage to previously deal with the Bio-Lizard, since in the last story, that, ever since in Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, if you want to count that for the GameCube port, alongside with DLC for HD counterparts. So, I digress. And every once in a while though is about the fact that, as you can tell, we also learned the next Doom power, and that's what appears to be Doom Surf. And also, in addition to that, we also learned the forms of Doom Blast as well, so that way we can able to actually reach higher places that we normally couldn't able to actually do so. And I think there's also with the forms of some of these mini challenges as well in White Space. Although so far we actually did manage to accomplish 3 of these things so far, but there's actually going to be more challenges later on, which even then we'll get to that eventually. So anyways though, so today for this video is that we're about to be experiencing not 1 but 2 levels for today, much like the forms of how it does it since the very beginning of the game, and so much so we're about to jump into this particular stage right here, which if I can recall correctly is actually going to be based off from Sonic 06, according to the forms of the structure and stuff like that. Now as you can see on screen, much like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Generations Remaster, basically though is about the fact that we can able to actually change between different skins and what have you, and as you can see, we actually turned into Turrios, which, as far as I'm aware, Turrios is obviously based off from the original concept of Shadow the Hedgehog before it became reality, and so much so for the fact that for what I've seen this particular costume in action, it does look pretty cool and everything, but usually relatively speaking though, apparently some people seem to complain about his quills, might felt a little bit off, but apart from those aside things though, it is a nice bonus, especially concerning for the fact that if you really want to get that particular skin, obviously though is about the fact that you have to download the DLC, which appears to be the Digital Deluxe upgrade, and as a result though you can able to actually get one of those skins for Shadow, or at least specifically one of them, because as far as I'm aware, alongside with that particular Turrios' skin, there's also with the forms of the extra background music pack for specifically for Shadow Generations, which as far as I'm aware, several music tracks does manage to contain several tracks from the likes of not only from Sonic Adventure 2, but along with the forms of all the way up to Sonic Frontiers, at least as far as I do notice right from the get-go, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that again, it's probably best if we're able to save that particular topic until for later, but as you can see, we now ended up in the next stage in Shadow Generations, and as I said this before, this stage is obviously based off from Sonic 06, and if you couldn't tell already, we are traversing into Kingdom Valley. So as a result though, I think that was a good choice in my part, especially about the fact I do really enjoy the original version of Kingdom Valley, despite the fact that Sonic 06 was very unpolished. But I'm very happy to admit that Kingdom Valley, at least as far as I can tell, is easily one of the best looking stages in the entire game. And even especially noticeable is concerning is easily one of my favorite stages in the entire Shadow Generations game right now. Especially because, well, not only about the fact that there's no longer any unpolished moments like glitches, as well as the forms of some dodgy situations. And on top of all that stuff though, I really love the HD makeover in terms of the forms of Kingdom Valley. And on top of all that stuff though, I really do adore the music background of this particular stage, usually specifically in Act 1, and eventually at some point in Act 2, and so much so for the fact that I very appreciate they somehow choose this stage, because relatively speaking, I was about the fact that back in Sonic 06, that is when, about the fact that both Shadow and Rouge have somehow first met with the forms of Mephiles the Dark, thanks to the forms of Dr. Eggman, did somehow wanted the Scepter of Darkness back, and so much so for the fact that after dealing with the forms of this particular, well, ambush, and so much so for the fact that the Scepter of Darkness has been shattered, and as a result it did somehow release Mephiles free, and so much so for the fact that that is why they somehow, well, ended up in the forms of Rendezvous Point. And so much so for the fact that, well, you get the idea why I was expecting to talk about this, especially if you ever saw our Let's Play of Sonic 06 before, ever since I can't even believe it's been about a year ago now, since that Maxi has already done Sonic 06 as a redo Let's Play, but this time on the PlayStation 3 version, as opposed to the Xbox 360 version, so yeah, if you guys want to check it out, then by all means do that. So, anyways though, so, yeah, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date is, of course, the 31st of January today, in some cases in 2025 today, so it looks like we're now on to the final day of January before we move on to the next month, which appears to be February. So much so about the fact that I'm pretty sure we've only got about 2 weeks left until we're able to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the film's release of Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which I can't even believe by saying this is about the fact that once that time comes, then exponentially that particular film is going to be celebrating 5 years since when it first came out, despite the fact that that particular film was originally going to be released during at some point in 2019 in November, but of course that film has been pushed back due to the massive criticism with the film's ugly Sonic's design. But I digress. Whoa, look how gorgeous this scenery looks, especially considering for the fact that, well, despite the fact I accidentally ignored those 2 collection keys, but don't worry folks, I'll be back for those eventually. So anyway, and obviously though, it's about the fact that obviously we also don't have to worry about the forms of some questionable gameplay mechanics when it comes to Sonic 06 in mind. Like there's still no mark speed section, and on top of all that stuff though, there's no such thing as the vehicles this time, because, you know, Doom Powers is now taking over in terms of the forms of the majority of the gameplay style for the sake of Shadow Generations this time. So yeah, nothing else to add around here. So anyways though, also, speaking of which though, in regards to the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog movie related stuff, that I do already know for the fact that Sonic the Hedgehog 4, in terms of the actual filming location, apparently though is going to be taking place during the forms of in Vancouver. I think that was technically it's going to be the 3rd time about the fact that they're trying to film something on Vancouver, because the previous attempts they've already done is, of course, the first Sonic movie and the second Sonic movie, and so much so that about the fact that technically the 3rd one doesn't count, just because it obviously is going to be filmed in different locations, such as London, just because of the writer's strike and all that stuff, which you probably already know what I'm talking about here. So, man, I really love Act 2's, you know, Kingdom Valley music in the background, because as far as I'm aware, it sounds so good. And usually, again, that the physics, or to be more specific than that, the visuals in this particular stage looks so much more detailed, and so much so that I very appreciate about the fact that the Kingdom Valley stage is, you know, a really awesome stage, at least as far as the choices, as far as I'm aware. Because I'm almost assuming about the fact that they'll try to able to actually go for Wave Ocean, or Dusty Desert, or White Acropolis, because I can assure you that much like the evolves of how it does it in Sonic Generations based game, obviously though, I don't think there's a possibility we can able to actually come across into winter themed levels, I'm afraid. So there won't be any choices like White Acropolis, or Flame Core, as well as Radical Train, Tropical Jungle, because Tropical Jungle, in terms of Shadow Story, Rouge is the only one that she did manage able to explore into. Tropical Jungle, and also about the fact that there's also, well, Wave Ocean, as I said earlier, and as well as Aquatic Base, but oh well, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. I think they're trying to go for fan-favorite stages, as far as I'm aware, in terms of both Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations respectively. Like, I can assure you that fan-favorite stages were not only Crisis City, but alongside with the forms of Kingdom Valley as well, at least as far as I'm aware, so... But anyway, though, oh yeah, let's talk about the forms of the most important aspect about the forms of today's discussion. That's what appears to be for the fact that, as I mentioned this before, since and around a couple of days ago, actually, that it's been 10 years since when the 14th of January's Nintendo Direct in 2015 did somehow manage to take place. Now, I know for the fact that I wasn't around during that time, but I do know for certain for one thing about the fact that Sonic and Knuckles did somehow tell me about this. That's what appears to be for the fact that obviously though they did remember, they got incredibly hyped about the forms of quite a few games they did manage able to get revealed during the forms of that particular direct, and that's what appears to be for the fact that they do remember the actual hype about the forms of several Wii games have now officially became true for able to actually become playable on Wii U. Well, at least in terms of digital games as far as I'm aware, because, well, I do know for certain for one thing, they did somehow manage able to reveal not one, but 3 games at first. Well, there's only technically one game that did already came out after that particular presentation, which appears to be Super Mario Galaxy 2, which I'm still very surprised about the fact that Super Mario Galaxy 2 has still not made it onto Nintendo Switch just yet. Maybe there could be a last chance before they moving on to Nintendo Switch 2, so much so for the fact that I suppose we'll have to wait and see what happens. Probably at some point, once we make our way to September, sometime, whenever when, you know, the 40th anniversary of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise is going to take place, at least in terms of the forms of, I don't know if they're going to do the direct system, just like the forms of how it does it back in 2020, or to be more specifically, they're trying to able to actually incorporate with the Mario 10 Day for the likes of March 10th, and I can assure you the March the 10th is going to be on, well, if I can recall correctly, it's going to be on Tuesday, wasn't it? Yeah, I would say it's on Tuesday, because, no wait, it was actually, I think it was on Monday actually, because, well, I keep on thinking about a couple of years ago, since like 2023 or 2024, which is last year, but either way, oh goodness gracious, we somehow come across into that familiar friend from the likes of Sonic Frontiers, and that's what appears to be Big the Cat. Although, I don't think there's going to be any fishing mechanics here and there this time, so we'll just have to able to have a chat with him.
Hello. Your name's Shadow, isn't it? Have you seen my good buddy, Froggy?
So, yeah, if you try to talk to him though, obviously though, like I said this before, there's no fishing minigame this time, unlike in Sonic Frontiers, so, yeah, I guess that's what I can really think about that, I guess. So, anyway, also, I do sort of remembered about the fact that when it comes to looking back on that particular Nintendo Direct, as I mentioned earlier, that Sonic and Knuckles did tell me about the fact that they got incredibly hyped about the forms of the new lineup of amiibos, which not only does it bring us into, or brings us rather, for some more Super Smash Bros. Amiibo lineup, but in terms of the forms of other series of amiibos they are very looking forward to. And that's what appears to be the Super Mario Bros. Lineup in terms of the forms of those amiibo figurines. And because of that though, the reason why that the Super Mario amiibo lineups was a thing is most likely because of not only for both of these games, well, to be more accurate though, one of those updates did somehow get revealed thanks to the forms of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for the Wii U, and on top of all that stuff though, one of the main modes you do able to actually interact in Mario Party 10, which appears to be Amiibo Party, which, truth be told though, is about the fact that again, it's been a very long time since we actually played Mario Party 10 ever since sometime in 2022. Well, this is mainly because that game is now being overshadowed by not only Mario Party Superstars, but alongside with recently Super Mario Party Jamboree as well, just because, well, I can assure you about the fact I can't believe it's been almost 10 years ago since Mario Party did last use the car mechanic, and so much so that didn't go too well at the end when it comes to the release of Mario Party 10. So, I digress. So as you can see, we jump into the next stage right here, and this stage looks a bit familiar to you, doesn't it? Well, if you couldn't tell already, this stage is actually from Sonic Forces, apparently, which I already know for the fact that because the setting and stuff like that, and usually as far as I'm aware, we once again got able to bump into those familiar Defect robots kind of stuff ever since not only in Sonic Forces, but alongside with Team Sonic Racing and Sonic Frontiers and Chaos Island, despite the fact that they'd not been active at that point. And as you can tell, we actually ended up in Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces, because as far as I'm aware, that basically though we're going to be able to try to go into not only in terms of the forms of the city, but alongside with that though, I think there's going to be some underground segments here and there every once in a while. And I gotta say, this stage is actually a lot more fun this time around though, in comparison to the forms of Sonic Forces to me though, just because, like I stated before, that one of the problems with the forms of Sonic Forces to me though, is how short and ridiculously, well, in terms of quantity, it does have a lot of stages, but in terms of the forms of the quality, or especially noticeable with the forms of the length times of these, the majority of the stages in Sonic Forces, they are very, very ridiculously short in terms of Sonic Forces when it comes to levels and stuff like that. So, and as far as I'm aware, thankfully though in Shadow Generations though, that Sunset Heights is actually a lot more lengthy at this time, as opposed to the forms of how it does and how ridiculously short that is from Sonic Forces. So, and I believe we're about to be able to oh jeez. Looks like we've met again, Doomsday. We're able to once again try to teleport us into that familiar environment structure, which, as far as I'm aware, is once again Radical Highway. And I think this is going to be the last time we're going to be able to actually get transported into Radical Highway, at least until for later. And so much so for the fact that that pretty much gives us a hint until later on, that is. But then again, no, let's not get ahead of ourselves at this point right now. And as you can tell, yeah, it reminds me of so much of Doctor Strange with all that particular visual effects and all that stuff. So, yeah, as you can tell, we're now going to be able to try to go for these little loops and stuff like that, or to be more specifically for these, like, in-dimensional obstacles and stuff like that, which, yeah, it's hard for me to explain, honestly, because I already know for a fact it has been about a couple of hours ago since I actually have last played this game for sure. Maybe that could be a possibility, at least as far as I do know, that maybe we can able to predict about the fact that we can able to actually finish this game up probably at some point during the Informs-a-thon sometime in February, because, well, we were originally able to try to finish this game up during the Informs by the end of this month, which appears to be January, but of course, as you already know about the fact that we actually suffered the Forza stupid illness ever since around a week ago at this point, but thankfully though is about the fact that I'm feeling much more better in comparison to the Forza of how it does it since about a week ago, because, oh my god, you will never believe what I just witnessed, you know? So, straight to the point though, actually, it's about the fact that, thankfully though, the collection keys are nowhere to be found, in terms of the forms of the actual transitions like these, you know, oh, jeez Louise, I keep on getting hit by these little, weird-looking obstacles right there, but, oh well, no big deal. And straight to the point, we're not able to just, gosh darn it, I, think this part is actually kind of tricky to avoid, but luckily though, we can just simply try to hold the attack right at Doom's eye, we're able to once again claim ourselves this familiar emblem of some kind, and so much so for the fact that we can able to now move on, because again, if you miss one of them, you have to replay one of the levels, and I get the feeling that Kingdom Valley does not able to actually contain the actual interruption translation or transition to Radical Highway, so I think this might actually be the last time we were able to actually get transitioned into the familiar environment, which appears to be the interdimensional version of Radical Highway, so yeah, I guess that begs the question, I guess, so, but anyway, And I do apologize for my awkward commentary sometimes, but it's mainly because, as far as I'm aware, I was a bit skeptical of what's going to be up in terms of the forms of next month for February. Well, aside from the fact that I've heard about the fact that there's going to be yet another rumor again, and so much so about the fact that despite the fact I was going to be very cautious about, or very optimistic about the fact that what's to come in terms of February. So anyway, so that pretty much does it for Act 1 in Sunset Heights. And now let's move on to Act 2, where basically, though, Act 2 might have felt a lot more interesting in comparison to the forms of the majority of the stages from Sonic Forces. Is that, for one, obviously, though, is about the fact that, obviously, you know, the level itself is much more lengthier, and second of all, the time of day is actually a lot different, which, as you can tell, it's now stormy and rainy at the same time. So, whilst unlike in Sonic Forces, though, there is no weather condition changes as far as I'm aware, in terms of not only for the sake of the forms of Ghost Town, but alongside with the forms of Park Avenue and the original version of Sunset Heights, as well as the forms of Redgate Park or Redgate Bridge, at least as far as I do notice. But either way, though, and I'm pretty sure about the fact that Shadow did already technically experience one of the levels from Sonic Forces, so just to ensure for the fact that at one point that he will try to able to actually beat the likes of the forms of Infinite. So as a result, though, it's about the fact that obviously, though, that, you know, we've already experienced this stage before in the original Sonic Forces, except now Shadow is going to be able to try to experience a whole lot of aspects thanks to the forms of not only Chaos Control abilities, but alongside with the forms of, you know, Doom powers, as you can definitely tell. So either way, though, and yeah, I will have to admit it, though, right away, that in terms of my final thoughts of January for 2025, it's not bad, but it's just just feels a bit, I don't know, meh to me. I mean, it's not the best, but hey. Oh yeah, every once in a while, though, as you can tell, with certain black arms, if you can tell with this guy right here, as we've already did manage to dealt with, basically, though, you got able to keep on using the Chaos Spear, or should I say, Doom Spears, in order to able to try to take down his shield, because every time if you do manage to homing attack into it, obviously, though, it will not break free, or not break through the actual shield. So as a result, though, it's a good thing we have to use the Doom Spears at all times, so just in case we can able to get rid of the shield, and then he can able to actually use Chaos or Doom Blast, in order to able to try to able to fling him out, and then just try to able to knock him to the furthest distance away, and you can instantly manage to able to teleport onto further distance up ahead. So yeah, you get the idea about that point, especially considering that, oh jeez, I totally forgot about this part. Oh yeah, funny thing actually is about the fact that whenever I first experienced this stage on the Switch version, I accidentally come across into the faults of this out of bounds glitch, and as a result, though, whenever I ended up in the actual water by mistake, obviously, though, it just takes me into this particular out of bounds glitch. So yeah, thankfully that's not the case on the PS4 version, so maybe it's probably because of my timing issue on the Switch version as far as I'm aware. But either way, oh jeez, I was not expecting that robot is in my way. But either way, let's go and destroy that particular little hand right here from that particular devastating Defect robot thing right there. And, well, the level's done. So yeah, pretty cool stage to me, though. I mean, generally speaking, though, it's definitely a lot more funner than the faults of how it does it on Sonic Forces in terms of the majority of the city levels, as far as I'm aware, because like I said before, the majority of the stages in Sonic Forces are extremely short, whilst, you know, thankfully, like I mentioned this before, Shadow Generations now finally managed to fix the actual level's length into likely also to make things a lot more balanced in terms of the level's length. So there we go. Sunset Heights has been completely done with Act 2.
Thank you, Shadow.
Where did you learn to fight like that?
They must be from a point in time before the Ark disaster. Perhaps I can change their fate.
Shadow? You look grim. Are you alright?
I'll be fine. We'll all be fine. Find somewhere safe to hide. I'll take care of everything.
Okay, so it looks like we somehow bump into not only Maria Robotnik, but also Gerald Robotnik, which, as far as I'm aware, that, unlike the forms of how it does in Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog, I feel like the actual visuals in those two games, with two of those characters respectively, felt a bit eye-candy to me. But thankfully though, in Shadow Generations, they're a lot more, nicer this time, especially concerning for the fact that they no longer become, well, let's just say, during the forms of in Shadow the Hedgehog to me though, as well as Sonic Adventure 2, I will admit though right away that Maria kind of feels like a Barbie kind of figurine. Well, thankfully though in Shadow Generations that's not the case, because obviously though it's about the fact that they're trying to go for that particular modern look in comparison to the forms of how it does it back in 2001 as well as 2005 respectively. So yeah, that I guess. So that pretty much does it for you know, like I said before, Sunset Heights, and now it's going to continue things on right here, and it looks like we got able to use Doom Spears again to be able to actually activate the other door, so that pretty much leads us to the continuation portion of this particular, well, palace, at least as far as I do notice. So, anyways, let's see what's beyond here. There's another treasure chest there, which again, we'll save that for later, so, oh yeah, and another thing I would like to point out as well, I've recently managed able to, unfortunately, go back on playing Mario Kart Tour again. However, I'm very, very, very happy about this right now, in terms of going back onto Mario Kart Tour right now, at the same time, actually. It's probably because, well, out of nowhere, well, it's a shame about the fact I still haven't get a chance to able to unlock Orange Photo, but that's mainly because it's locked in once again with the Bonzo stupid, ranked cup system, but luckily though, I somehow managed able to redeem myself after that particular massive negativity when it comes to able to actually not gain that specific character I want. But thankfully though, I managed to get myself yet another playable character in Mario Kart Tour on my spare own time. That's what appears to be Fire Rosalina, based off from Super Mario 3D World. So yeah, that's actually pretty awesome to me, especially about the fact that at the very least I got the you know, yet another cosmetic character for Rosalina at the very least. So even though I'm still missing a couple of those cosmetic characters left for Rosalina for the sake of time. So anyway, so once again we have to able to try to go through any other challenge acts while you know, after we somehow managed able to bump into that particular next boss gate right here, and so much so that we well, we still managed able to got one key at the moment right now, and so much so we're able to try to get even more keys until we're able to actually access to the next boss. So, but we'll save these challenge acts for later for the next video, because as far as I'm aware, first of all, we need to participate on more challenges in white space in 3D, like for instance in this challenge right here, collect most of these rings. However though, you can use the Chaos Control to able to stop time if you really want to desperately want to go after the rainbow rings, if you try to able to do it that way. But eventually at some point later on though, you can't use the Chaos Control ability due to certain circumstances, which as a result we'll get to that eventually. So, but yeah, I've got nothing else to say, I'm afraid, guys. I mean, it's just about the fact that, well, again, I just found the January, it's not bad, but it's just that I found it to be an okay month so far, in terms of 2025, as far as I can definitely tell. But thankfully, hopefully, though, we can able to have some high expectations later on, during the evolves within 2025, as far as anything else goes, especially concerning for the fact that we've almost at 2 more months left until the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is going to be on the horizon still. So either way though, but I'm still very curious to know of what specific features they're able to actually bring for the sake of Nintendo Switch 2. So and I did not mean to activate that because I can assure you it does require yet another Doom power, at least as far as I do know. But yeah, it's all covered in like slimy goop and stuff like that, which every time you walk into those things, you'll be basically walking extremely slow because, you know, since it's all gooey and everything, that means about the fact that you can't run nearly as fast. So that's something worth pointing out. So anyway, so for the time being though, let's just go ahead and try to find some more machine parts. But then again though, if I do end up missing some of them, then don't worry folks, I somehow managed able to get a guide to able to actually figure out how on earth where these machine parts was actually going to be located, because again, some of them can be easy to spot, whilst other times though, it can be ridiculously difficult to find sometimes, especially concerning for the fact that they always ended up like, well, let's just say for the fact that the actual scenery of white space in 3D, and if at least depending on what specific spots you go into, they look incredibly similar to one another, and so much so for the fact I can totally see why that the machine parts in Shadow Generations is basically the equivalent to finding those Korok seeds from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So, but luckily, like I said this before, there's only like a total of 80 of them rather than 100, or should I say 900 or even 10,000 for both of those Zelda games respectively. So, but anyway, so that pretty much does it for that challenge. And yeah, despite I didn't get the rainbow rank, because I will admit it though right away that trying to perform a spin attack with the forms of Doom Surf can be tricky to execute. But regardless of anything else though, as long as you're really able to try to deal with the forms of a lot of controlling stuff, then you should be okay. So I have no idea why I somehow explained about this particular situations like that though. Well, especially concerning for the fact I can definitely tell that Blaze the Cat will definitely going to be able to be returning back on playing Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games for the DS at some point tomorrow, because, you know, after the events of how me and Blaze did somehow suffered a lot in terms of the forms of the previous week, because, you know, stupid cold flu decides to come into play, and so much so I'm just, you know what I mean. I'm probably not going to get into further details at this point right now. And also we was able to grab some more pages for Gerald's journal, which, yes, every time if you do manage able to, like, try to take care of the forms of these little propeller balloons, and as soon as when that particular thing pops, basically though you can get one of those pages for Gerald's journal, which obviously though about the fact that it's pretty cool to able to have that in game, but ultimately speaking though, we also managed able to get the real version of Gerald's journal, at least if you do manage to purchase the game in day one, and because of that though, it is pretty fascinating to see the forms of several pages about Gerald's past, or even with the creation of the ultimate life form, which appears to be Shadow, and even with Maria Robotnik was actually shown up, at least in one of those pages of Gerald's journal. So either way, that seems pretty cool and everything. So anyway, let's just go ahead and double check what's beyond here. There's some more parts, which I think fundamentally speaking I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're now onto the halfway point-ish in terms of trying to finding those machine parts, at least as far as I'm aware. So anyway, let's go ahead and pop this next propeller balloons to be able to get a next page. So yeah, everything else is all in checked. Now I believe in order to able to actually check out that particular Gerald's journal is that you have to look on that on the collection room, at least as far as I do know. But anyway, let's go and check in here, and suffice to say, in addition to trying to able to, oh jeez, that was close. And oh, it's just a chest, which again we'll open that eventually at some point. So because then again though, it's probably best if we're able to actually open up every single chest until for later, so just in case I don't, you know, lose track of myself. So with that being said folks, it's time to get endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic X Shadow Generations. While we're still playing through Shadow Generations, is that we're about to begin the challenge acts from the likes of Kingdom Valley and Sunset Heights. So I'll see you guys until on Monday. Later fellas.